Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Save World, Make Art with my good friend, Eugene Clark. Say hi, Eugene.
Hey. Hi,
That's him.
everybody out there in video podcast land.
That's Eugene. And this is me, Matt Faulkner. We got to set the timer here so we don't go on for hours and hours. All right. So, Eugene, today we want to continue with our, we're going to keep coming back to sketchbooks because they're just so important, I think, but still segueing and maybe bring it to the digital traditional materials.
Sure.
Discussion.
Let's continue our discussion where traditional meets digital. Digital versus traditional. Which one will survive over the time?
Yeah, now, what I remember is when computers first came into, so first, I do have a sketchbook here. We're going to talk about a sketchbook. All right,
Yes.
So just so you know, we'll come back to that in a second. But I remember when computers first came out, I was still in college, meaning digital way of doing the business. And the first thing, I was in college, it was 1983, my senior year, and they had come up with this method of printing typography that was like, oh my God. And, it was a vast box with a little computer screen, and you typed in the words and you got back, whatever you typed in, but it took like forever for the thing to come out of the printer.
Oh my God. Like, would it take hours or days?
It depended upon how many people were backed up on it too. So it just slowed down because more, because back then it was probably like, compared to the I don't know what's the best analogy, the super airliner full of memory that you can have now in a phone. Back then it was probably like a thumbnail full. That's how much memory it had, so.
Oh my gosh.
It would freeze up, and you'd be waiting upstairs. I'm in my studio. We all had studios, and we were like, okay, I can't wait till my type comes out. And it came out in strips, and like, I have my typography, and then you'd have to cut it up and place it on your mechanical. That's what they used to call it. So that's where
Matt,
came from.
We didn't have that luxury like you're talking about because, you were on the East Coast, so you guys set the trend. And because I was, in the Midwest, Detroit proper, we had to do this. We had to go to the art store, and they would give you the Letraset book with like every single typeface available in this book like this. And there would be a page of each typeface. We'd have to set it on the copy machine, and then we would have to change the size based on what we needed. Then we would have to cut that out and make a word from our, yes. Then we would have to trace the letters and ink them. They wouldn't allow us to just, because they taught lettering at our school. So they wanted everybody to be like these perfectionist letterers. Yeah. So we had to do all this, layout paper, tracing paper, whatever worked, and then ink it up and then put that onto your piece. Then they do the photostat. So do you remember the photostat?
Eventually you had to take a picture of it so it would be flat. It wouldn't be like, you didn't use rubber cement though, right? Did you use to stick the words down? And
we used typically, instead of rubber cement, we tended to use spray mount because it adhered better. But the problem with that is one time, if it's, and that too. But if you didn't get it down right the first time, you really didn't have any ability to move it around like you could rubber cement.
So, and they made us walk to school in a snowstorm every day. 10 miles.
Uphill, backwards.
10 miles there, 20 miles, 5 miles back. In a
carrying
blizzard.
Our classmates on our back.
Yeah, in the summer. So, okay. So I said all of that because I wanted to set up the whole thing about the sketchbook. This was, okay, now this is about the tactile. all the complaints I can have about that. And we used to have to do typography too, where we painted, and we had the California case. Do you remember that? Where all of the type was in a big box and you had to figure out where all of the type was and pick it out and then put it in the, what do they call that thing that held the type?
Man, it was a wooden almost tray
frame. Yeah.
And you could line it all up there. I don't know.
I don't know. Thing.
Well, you know,
anyway.
I feel like I feel like the word typesetter came from that particular device.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were guys who, that was their job. When they did a newspaper article, they would send the article down to somebody in the typesetting facility, and that person would sit in front of the California case. That's what it was called. And it had all the letters, all the spaces, and you would pick the letters and put them in one at a time. Insanity. But I mean,
insanity.
Hundreds of years since Gutenberg, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, you can still, at places like Greenfield Village, you can, and Crossroads Village, they have a couple where you can walk in and they have a person doing the typesetting and they'll talk to you about it. So you can actually go there and see this in action, what Matt and I are talking about, because you're scratching your head going, these guys are nuts.
Yeah, look up the California typesetting case. And just, you know, see, this was the torture. They put it more like, and we'd have to walk to school in 20 miles of some degree during the summer.
Do you remember working with the pens that had the nibs where you would dip them in the ink to do your writing? So the calligraphy type.
Those pens, yeah.
Except they were the pointed ones, so you could use them to do ink drawings and stuff.
Well, I still do that, the Crow Quill.
The Crow Quill pens.
I would, man, if I could do that today, that's how I would draw. I have, yeah, I love that. But there was a whole way of, man, we could have this talk for the next 2 days. I mean, that was a job. People would come in when I first worked in New York City in an ad agency, and they hired people to come in whose job it was to paint typography. And they used brushes, and it was a real craft. I remember the one woman who used to do it was brilliant. You know, they would need some kind of scroll thing to go under a headline, and it was gorgeous.
And when they would do the hand painting, then would that be like a photo would be taken of that, right?
Right, but the whole thing was too, like, how are they going to add that to the typography? So the typography was still mechanical, right? And so that person would come in and have to be really good with like razors and cutting the text and not leaving shadows. You know, like it was an incredible craft, and they got paid well for that time too. You know.
Wow, and the ruling pen that you could adjust, and then to draw the straight line, you fill that sucker up with ink, and then you get a nice blob at the end, and scrap it all and do it again.
Oh my God, yes. So I'm saying all that because...
hold on, I have to... I'm just talking to the viewers. Do you guys know what a ruling pen is? Google it.
They don't know that. Right. They don't know that. Look it up.
Look it up.
It was a horrible thing. More torture. I think it wasn't really a thing. It was designed to torture art students. It didn't really help. Nobody used it as a tool except to torture art students. All right, this is my sketchbook. Now this is I'm going to show you a sketch from a book that I did called Black Belt a long time ago. Now, what you'll see is that there is text in there.
Wow.
This is the way I used to put together sketches to send to the editor. It would be done in my sketchbook smaller. So this would be, you know, in the end, it would be the same size as a picture book, right?
Wow. So you drew your drawings the exact size that they would come out when they were printed?
Eventually, yeah. The finished artwork would be the size of it would be 8.5 by 22.
Wow. And that was what the original was going to be.
Right.
When you were done. Wow.
Right. And it was usually good because it would be better if I did it at, like 12 by 24, because you always wanted to shrink it down by like a few percentage points, because that made it even more, photographing, not photographing, not the scanning at the time. No scanning, the photographing. If you made it a little bit smaller, it made it more vibrant, and it did nice things to it. So the
Wow.
reason why I showed that is because I miss actually holding the type that way.
So
And
hold that up again, because I don't think you explained, you said there's type there, but explain how the type got there.
that's stuck on there with rubber cement.
And is it printed out of a printer?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was now this is the late 1990s. We do have printers at that time and we can print them up, but and that was set on a computer, right? Prior to that, people used to actually do mock-up text for the
Wow.
text in the sketch stage. So you'd hand draw, okay, the text is going to go there. And some people were really messy. Some people were a little bit more. The reason I'm bringing it all the way around to this, I miss that. I miss holding, and there was a lot more time. It felt like it wasn't constantly like, hey, get it done. You've got an iPad, fix it and do it yesterday. You know, there was more time like, okay, I'm going to stick this here and I'm going to look at it for a little while and consider it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's the point I'm trying to make is in regard the tactile, the holding the thing. This is different than holding. Sorry, I got to step away from the screen for a second.
That's okay. Now
This
we get to see how nicely you're dressed.
Oh, well, thank you. I dressed up just for this. So this is different than holding this.
Right.
This is a thing, but you know, it's and
Oh,
it's
right.
far more accessible. I get it. I get all of the benefits of this, but I miss this.
Yes. And you know, I used to buy those boards that were templates that had everything was done in blue lines, and you had a graph almost so that you could follow across, and it had numbers and letters, you know, so you could do these things and figure out where you're going to line everything up when you're doing your cutting and your pasting of your illustration with your letters like you were talking about.
Right.
And maybe we would buy, I don't know if you remember, but they had that sticky backed border tape. And some of the border tape was very fancy. Maybe it had a swirl to it or some kind of thing, you know, and then you'd have to like get an X-Acto and lay that down and then cut it if you wanted a border around your picture. You had to put border tape.
So all of the things you're describing require eye-hand coordination. And that all is getting done in the program, in the applications now, which is not the same thing as holding a razor, cutting it things perfectly, getting that feeling. We were talking about it last week about if you're going to paint big, that expression of the big arc of the whole body. Yeah. All of this stuff with the little, you know, the iPads and on the phones, it's great. It is. It's great. It really is great. At the same time, we're missing this. I think it has an effect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, as things disappear, like what we're talking about, and we adhere to this digital tablet or screen, however you're creating your digital work, now some new things are coming into play, and by losing some of those old approaches, yes, the expediting of the work and the deadlines, the timelines are much shorter, and expectations a little bit higher, because, you know, as soon as you get that work done, I can email it to you and you can have it instantly, and then we can put it to use. Yes.
And I get that. I think that you're you're trying to say it's not all horrible, Matt.
No, I'm just playing that other flip side as to,
I get it.
You know, people that don't have any connection to what we're talking about.
Yes.
Because, you know, look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel the same way you do. I mean, there's a lot that I definitely miss when it comes to all of that stuff. And then what you think about is, if you say eye-hand coordination because you're doing cutting and this and that, and you're not doing those things on the computer, I mean, there's a difference between using a digital, like you said, pencil on a piece of glass and doing all your drawing that way, than to have to, use all these other sets of tools and ways of, it's probably the way that Henry Ford felt when he was making his first automobile.
Yeah.
He called in to his wife who was cooking, because he, if you go to Greenfield Village, there's his workshop, his original workshop. It's separate from the house. He's in there and he calls through the window and says, "Honey, do you have any duct tape?" And can you imagine, like, when she came out with that roll of duct tape, what he could do with that stuff?
Oh my God.
He made a car out of it.
Well, for God's sake. Of course he did. You can make anything out of duct tape.
Make anything.
But that's a good point. It's the purpose of this. If it sounds like, that I'm an old guy trying to dump on whatever, all the tools people are using right now, that's not what I'm trying to do. I do want to acknowledge what I see as the difference. And so, yeah, that's why I've brought these other props in. One of the differences is in learning about color digitally. I'm sure it can be done. I don't know how to teach people through a computer. I haven't had to. This, which is my watercolor palette. Now you could say, "Oh, okay, it's a big messy palette," but the thing is, every single one of these sections is a color that I know personally. These are my pals. These are my people right here. Okay, so your alizarin crimson and your cadmium red, two different people, but all of the reds are right here. And my understanding of color is that all I need are 3 reds, 3 yellows, 3 greens, 3 blues, and 3 browns. That's all I use.
So in terms of like a white or a black, that's not even in there.
In my water-based, if it's just water-based, the white of the paper will be the white.
And then for black, you're using like maybe a burnt umber and a ultramarine blue, perhaps.
So you're talking my language right there. You know these people. You know how they're going to relate to each other, right? Maybe even an indigo with a burnt umber.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be nice.
I'm getting crazy, right?
Yeah. So, sometimes that alizarin with the ultramarine blue makes a nice dark color.
It does, right? And then each one of the colors. Well, we'll go into color. Maybe we'll go into a color another time. For me, I do, and we can talk more about it now. But I also wanted to show this is a very limited collection of my water-based color brushes, right? And I know all of these people the way I know the color people, right?
Yeah.
I know what they're going to do, right? And why I have different brushes and why some of them are more expensive than others. And I even have one of these in here, Eugene. Oh, do I have it? No, I left it in the studio. It was another one of those crazy old tools. Forget about it. But this is the thing is we have come to a place with technology where in the business, it does make things go faster. And I don't think that has made either a better product or a better experience of making the product.
That's true. Why? I want to show a couple images that just to tie into what you said, Mr. Faulkner. So I'm just going to share 2 sketchbook images. So this is one. And basically, I drew with pen in my sketchbook. Then I scanned it into the digital realm. And then I removed the background so that I could paint underneath the lines, the existing lines. And so all the color is done digitally. And this is my attempt at really trying to embrace the technology. And then this is one that kind of goes along with that previous drawing that we looked at in a couple episodes ago. It's another fight scene. Again, drawn in the sketchbook, scanned in, remove the background so that you can add color. And you can see there's a lot more color in this one than in this one. But that is my, attempt at trying to take this traditional world and expand digitally on it the way that I think I can
Right.
figure it out. Now what you're doing in your current work, we talked about this before, everything from start to finish is done within the digital realm. So now that beautiful palette with those lovely colors that you know so well have been cast aside, and those brushes for these little tools that you click on and you see like all these, and you have to click select and pick a technique, that's going to make you feel like you're looking at watercolor
Right.
as it's coming out. And you have to adjust your brush size digitally, and opacity and things like that. All those things are done in the physical traditional realm. It's just now you get paint on your hands,
Yeah.
and you have that opportunity to witness it go from wet to dry. You can
Right.
see it happen.
Right.
Little things like that do communicate with all the senses, I think, is something that gets lost in the digital.
And I don't, yeah, all of that's yes, 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 yes. One of the things too is that, I have to take something back. I said that I didn't think that the product has benefited from the process of the technological. That's not true. There's so much beautiful digital work. I mean, come on, that's a silly thing to say.
Yeah, and now we just learned that certain artists have been able to sell their work for millions by, and I don't even know what the process is, but it's a digital process where they can actually sell this digital based piece that the person that's buying it for millions, they're the ones that own somehow this, the way it exists. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even say the right terms. People are going to laugh at me if they watch this, if they know what I'm referring to, but it was just in the news recently.
Well, that would be nice. I'd like to meet those people who are buying digital imagery that way.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a new thing that I saw one of my former students on Facebook up in arms about it, because he thinks that it's bad for the environment, because of supposedly how you utilize and capture this. If you own it, you have to literally like run a computer way more than necessary, which can, contribute to, some of the hazards we deal with today environmentally. Whereas if you have a piece of Matt Faulkner's on a frame hanging on your wall, not the case. Whole different thing.
Right. And again, it's not mutually exclusive. It's simply saying, this is from my experience as a person who started with more of the traditional stuff, all traditional stuff, really. There does feel like it's unfortunate. Now, here's the other thing. I said that I hadn't taught people color. I can guarantee you, having used the program, just that program we talked about, Procreate, for painting, it's fantastic, and I could figure it out more. And definitely the palette that it has, I can get those same exact 12 colors on that. As a matter of fact, their little palette up in the corner of the screen is a little circle with,
you're making it happen in your current work. You're expanding and expressing what you once expressed traditionally. I just think that, like anytime you feel that sense of loss, this is another one of those. It's a sense of loss, because for so long, this method of this tactile was so part of what you do. Right. And now how do you get some of that back? So I think we're just opening the door to the conversation for our viewers of,
right,
taking your experience and expanding it with all the different means, so that you don't shy away from one. Those of you that maybe like Matt and I, we didn't really fall into the digital realm the way younger people are today. So we have to make it happen. So the traditional is our thing. Those of you that might really excel digitally, you know, opening up your experiences in the other. And
Yeah.
and one thing we know for true, Mr. Faulkner, what you can do in the tactile environment does affect how the digital will come out. So there is a nice correlation between that,
Yes.
which I think once people recognize that, there tends to be more balance.
I think that that's a good place for us to end.
All right.
Mr. Clark.
We're ending on the word balance.
Yeah. And that we're inviting dialogue too. If you have thoughts, please comment below. Eventually, I think you and I may want to do some live webcasts so people can actually talk to us. We're thinking about that. And we are teaching a course actually that's next week. You will see it down in the blurb below. Check out the link.
Yes, we have people signing up as we speak, and we're excited about that. So it is running. So join the fun.
Yeah. And it's 4 sessions, 2 hours a session over 2 weeks. It's only $100. So what the heck? Get in there.
Yeah, that's $25 per session.
Yep.
And there's homework involved. There's critiques involved. You're going to actually produce some work. You're going to get the eyes of both Matt and I looking at your stuff, talking about it. We're going to give you feedback. You're going to be able to do work overnight, Friday to Saturday, and then you'll have 5 days to do a major project. The next week, we build off of that. So there you go.
Awesome.
All right.
Dean, what is the theme song we're going to sing this week?
We're going to do the theme song from Hawaii Five-0. Ba 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 da do 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 da 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 do 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 ba 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 ba.
Beautiful.
Bye, everybody.
Peace and love.